I am standing before the only structure that remains from the 7 wonders of the ancient world. For 4,500 years, the Great Pyramid of Giza has stood here like a puzzle that still has no complete answer. Many people believe in mystical theories, but the truth lies in cold numbers and the harsh realities of history. This is not merely a tomb, it is a mega project that cost billions of dollars, driven by brilliant minds, and built on the sacrifice of tens of thousands of people. 2.3 million stone blocks, a height rivaling a 50-story skyscraper, a budget equivalent to $10 billion today. Yet the Great Pyramid of Giza was built with more than just money. It was built from the sweat of 30,000 people under a blistering 45 degrees Celsius sun, from bones crushed beneath 2-ton stone blocks, and from an iron discipline measured down to the millimeter. One single mistake could turn the greatest construction site in history into a mass grave in an instant. How did a Bronze Age civilization pull off a mega project so expensive and unforgiving that even modern engineering has to stand in awe? Don't look away. Right now, with the power of AI, let me peel back the mysteries buried beneath the sands of time. The beginning. The will of a god and an ancient mega budget. 2580 BC. I invite you to witness the moment Pharaoh Khufu ascends to the highest throne of Egypt. The instant the crown is placed upon his head, a supreme command is issued, setting in motion a plan that would later change the course of history, the construction of the Eternal House. But through the eyes of a modern project manager, I don't see a mere tomb. I see a national mega project, a total mobilization that consumed the kingdom's resources, intellect, and human lives. To put it in perspective, if a multinational corporation today were to sign a contract to rebuild this structure, the balance sheet alone would leave even billionaires in shock. From my financial perspective, from a financial standpoint, the numbers are staggering. The material budget alone would reach an estimated 1.1 billion USD just to acquire 2.3 million blocks of limestone and granite. These were not ordinary stones, but meticulously chosen to bear the crushing weight of thousands of years. Logistics and supply chains. Transporting 80-ton granite giants from the distant quarries of Aswan was a logistical challenge worth at least 600 million USD. In his time, Khufu turned the Nile itself into a transportation artery, transforming nature into a massive living logistics system. Labor costs alone would be staggering. Sustaining and paying a workforce of 30,000 people for 20 relentless years would demand more than $3.5 billion in today's terms. To me, this was never just about stacking stones. It was Khufu's declaration of absolute power. He did not spend money on fleeting luxury, he spent the entire GDP of his kingdom to buy immortality. Every block laid at this site carried the weight of an economy and the will of a god. But as the drawings on papyrus began to take physical form, Khufu's grand ambition became the nightmare of tens of thousands. Together, we stepped down from the jeweled throne and into the raw reality of the Giza worksite, where every inch of ground is soaked in human sweat and blood. The construction process, human labor, and blood. AI is reconstructing before my eyes a colossal construction site where 20,000 to 30,000 people worked relentlessly. And here is a truth worth confronting. This was not a land of shackled slaves as portrayed in films. The people you see were skilled craftsmen and volunteer farmers. They traded their labor for tax exemption and full food rations, a fair economic bargain, but one that came at an extraordinarily high human cost. The most brutal force I can feel here is the searing heat of the Giza Desert, where temperatures regularly climb to 45 degrees C. Look closely at how they operated: no machines, no cranes. To move stone blocks averaging 2.5 tons, workers hauled them across wooden ramp systems with nothing but human strength. To reduce friction, they poured water or smeared animal fat onto the wooden surfaces. Under the skin-scorching sun, sweat evaporated the moment it hit the stone dust, while bare hands clenched coarse papyrus ropes until they bled. When I look at the archaeological evidence from the workers' cemetery, I am left in silence. These skeletons cannot speak, yet they tell the entire story: vertebrae fused by calcification, arms shattered and never healed, joints worn down by relentless crushing labor. From a financial perspective, this represents an unimaginable loss of human life. If translated into modern costs for compensation and workplace safety, no project could survive such numbers. It would collapse instantly. Yet here, greatness was built upon the destruction of the human body. To me, every pristine white stone casing the pyramid does not merely reflect sunlight. It conceals a millennium of unnamed pain. Yet, amid the sweat and blood, I begin to notice something extraordinary. The Egyptians did not conquer the desert with muscle alone. Behind the shouts that hauled the stones forward stood brilliant minds engineers who transformed lifeless blocks into a symphony of mathematics and engineering, achieving a level of precision that even modern machines are forced to respect. Supreme engineering, precision beyond belief. When I look at the internal structure, I am genuinely shaken by a single question. How could a civilization with no machinery lift granite blocks weighing up to 80 tons to a height of 70 meters just to form the ceiling of a pharaoh's chamber? As I examine the AI-generated hypotheses, I realize the system was far more complex than we once imagined. It was not a single straight ramp, because to reach that height, such a ramp would have had to stretch over 1.6 kilometers long. Instead, AI simulations suggest a far more complex solution, an internal spiral ramp system running hidden within the stone structure itself. I see that ancient architects used voids at the pyramid's corners as pivot points combined with counterweight systems made of massive stone blocks. They weren't simply dragging stone, they were steering tens of tons blocks through a stone labyrinth calculated with precision down to every single breath. What truly sends chills down my spine is not the weight, but the numbers. Imagine this: the entire base perimeter of the pyramid stretches nearly 1 kilometer, yet the difference between its 4 sides is a mere 58 millimeters. From the perspective of a modern engineer, this is nothing short of irrational. At the time, they had only copper measuring tools, ropes, and astronomical observations. And yet, they aligned a 6 million-ton structure precisely to the cardinal directions east, west, south, and north, with a deviation from true north of just 0.05 degrees. Even more astonishing, the granite blocks inside the king's chamber were polished and fitted so perfectly that I cannot slide even a thin sheet of paper between them. To me, this is no longer construction. This is a high-precision scientific project executed entirely by hand. They transformed every stone block into a perfectly engineered component of a colossal stone supercomputer. And the question that still haunts me is this: were they merely building a tomb, or were they encoding a mathematical message meant to transcend time itself? But stone and engineering, no matter how magnificent, cannot stand on their own. To sustain a vast construction site that never slept, the pharaoh needed something even more important than granite: an enormous flow of food, unprecedented in history. Operating cost, the pyramid economy. Let's look at the real numbers behind those meals. Feeding 30,000 mouths every day continuously for 20 years is a logistical problem that even modern megacities would struggle with. The numbers speak for themselves. Based on archaeological reports and AI simulations, I've compiled a staggering menu for the Giza construction site. They needed to consume around 2,000 kilograms of meat from cattle, sheep, and goats, along with tens of thousands of loaves of bread and tens of thousands of liters of beer produced on an industrial scale. You heard that right, beer was the primary source of calories and morale, helping workers forget the suffocating heat of the desert. Converted into modern terms from the perspective of an economist, I was genuinely shocked by these figures. The annual cost of logistics and food alone would be equivalent to roughly 300 million USD. When all is said and done, the entire project consumed wealth equivalent to about 25% of the Egyptian kingdom's GDP at the time. Imagine a nation pouring a quarter of its total income into the construction of a single building. To me, this isn't just an operating cost, it is one of the greatest economic gambles in history. The pharaoh turned the entire kingdom into a colossal supply machine, from the lush green pastures of the Nile Delta to the blazing bread ovens of Memphis. All of it served a single purpose, sustaining the heartbeat of the stone giant at Giza. Looking at these numbers, I realized that the pyramids were not built of stone alone. They were built from the very prosperity and the economic backbone of an entire civilization. After 2 decades of shout sweat and relentless calculations, the great construction site at Giza finally fell silent. But this was not the silence of emptiness. It was the moment a wonder officially awakened, shedding its veil of dust to reveal its divine beauty. In 2560 BCE, the pyramid was completed. But I want you to set aside the image of the weathered yellowed stone blocks we see today. In that moment, it was an entirely different entity. I call it the diamond of the desert. The pyramid's entire massive surface was clad in pure white limestone, quarried from Tura, polished by master craftsmen to near perfection. AI reconstructions suggest that under the fierce Egyptian sun, the structure did more than reflect light. It blazed brilliantly like a colossal diamond set in an ocean of golden sand. I believe that from dozens of miles away, people could already see that radiant halo, a symbol of unquestionable power. And at the very summit, more than 146 meters above the ground, stood the pyramidion, the capstone plated in pure gold. When the first rays of dawn touched the peak, gold and white stone converged, creating a brilliant pillar of light that seemed to bind the earth to the sky. From a personal perspective, I feel this is no longer merely a construction project. It is a declaration that humanity, though small and finite, has succeeded in creating something eternal. Legacy and a question for posterity. After traveling with me on a long journey from $10 billion ledgers to drops of blood on the ramps, and finally to the radiant glory of inauguration, Day 1 question has remained in my mind: was all of this truly worth it? Tens of thousands of lives were left beneath the feet of the monument, and the budget of an entire people was poured into the scorching sand. Yet now, 4,500 years later, after the mightiest empires that once ruled the earth have crumbled into ash, the Great Pyramid still stands towering and defiant, challenging every law of time. To me, this structure is no longer merely the tomb of a king. It has become an eternal testament that when the iron will of a single individual combines with the enduring strength of an entire people, humanity can truly reach for immortality. The story of Pharaoh Khufu comes to a close for now, but the mysteries of ancient civilizations remain a treasure waiting to be uncovered. And you, if today you held supreme power and immense wealth in your hands, would you be willing to trade it all to leave an eternal mark on humanity? Share your perspective with me in the comments below, and don't forget to follow so we won't miss our next journeys of discovery. Thank you for accompanying me in this episode. Goodbye, and I'll see you again in the next Mysteries of History.